My son and his wife had a cruel plan against me, so I fled from his house. After moving into her son's house, a woman discovers that he and her daughter-in-law had a cruel plan to get rid of her. She overhears their conversation and realizes they want to send her to a nursing home without her consent. In the dead of night, she decides to escape, seeking freedom and dignity. Her escape is just the beginning of a journey of revenge and reclaiming her life. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching from. We continue. I promise this will be the best story you'll hear in your life. Eleanor adjusted the last mirror on the wall and sighed deeply. At 70 years old, she was beginning a new chapter in her life. The apartment where she had lived for 3 decades had been sold, and now her few possessions fit into this cozy room in the house of her son Michael and her daughter-in-law Jessica. The cardboard boxes still scattered across the floor told the story of an entire life being reorganized. "Mom, do you need help with anything?" Michael appeared at the door with his gentle smile that always reassured her. Even at 42 years old, he still had that protective manner that made her feel safe. "No, my son, I'm almost finished here," Eleanor smiled, running her hand through her gray hair that insisted on rebelling. "It's strange, you know, after living alone for so long, now sharing space again." Michael approached and placed his hands on his mother's shoulders. "You're not sharing your home. This is your home now, Mom. Jessica and I want you here with us." Eleanor felt her heart warm. After her husband George passed away 2 years earlier, loneliness had become a constant companion. The walls of the apartment seemed to echo memories that sometimes suffocated her. The decision to sell everything and move to her children's house hadn't been easy, but it seemed like the right choice. After all, family was all she had left. "Miss Eleanor," Jessica appeared at the door, carrying a tray with coffee and cookies. "I brought a little snack for you. You must be tired after so much moving." Eleanor observed her daughter-in-law with affection. Jessica had always been polite, though a bit reserved. Married to Michael for 5 years, she had never shown much closeness, but had never been hostile either. Perhaps now, living together, they could develop a warmer relationship. "Thank you very much, dear. You didn't have to trouble yourself." "Not at all. Now we're a real family living under the same roof." Jessica smiled, but Eleanor noticed that the smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Michael was telling me that you have several interesting stories to tell." "Oh, an old woman like me has many stories indeed," Eleanor laughed, taking a cookie from the tray. 70 years of life give you a lot to talk about." "Mom isn't old," Michael protested, kissing the top of her head. "She's in the prime of life to enjoy herself, and now she'll have all the company she deserves." The first few days were just as Eleanor had dreamed. Michael included her in dinner conversations, asked about her plans for the next day, and even Jessica seemed to make an effort to be closer. Eleanor felt as if she was regaining not just a family, but a reason to wake up every morning with hope. During morning walks in the neighborhood, Eleanor discovered a cozy bakery where she liked to have breakfast. The owner, Mr. Anthony, always greeted her with joy, and she began to feel part of that small community. For the first time in years, she felt she belonged somewhere. "How are you adapting, Mom?" Michael asked one Sunday afternoon while they watched television in the living room. Jessica had gone out to visit her mother. "Better than I expected, son. You've both been very caring to me." Eleanor squeezed his hand. "You know, after your father passed away, I thought I would never feel at home anywhere again. But here with Dad would be happy knowing you're well taken care of." Eleanor nodded, feeling a pang of longing. George always said that Michael was a good boy, that he would take care of her when necessary. It seemed he was right, as always. In the first few weeks, Eleanor established a comfortable routine. She woke up early, prepared her coffee, read the newspaper in the garden, and then helped Jessica with small household chores. In the afternoon, she liked to watch her soap operas, and in the evening she had dinner with the couple, listening about their work and sharing stories from her youth. "Miss Eleanor has some amazing stories about old Denver," Jessica commented during dinner, addressing Michael. "That one about the 1975 carnival is hilarious." Eleanor smiled, feeling valued. Perhaps her old stories were indeed interesting to younger people. For years, George had been her only listener, and after his passing, she thought those tales would die with her. Mom has always been a born storyteller, Michael agreed. I remember when I was a child, she would make up the craziest bedtime stories. I didn't make them up, I just embellished reality, Eleanor laughed, feeling lighter than she had in a long time. But it was on a Tuesday afternoon that Eleanor began to notice something different. She was in the kitchen preparing tea when she heard Jessica talking on the phone on the porch. No, Mom, she's fine. A little, how can I say, taking up a lot of space, but nothing we can't manage. Jessica's voice carried a tone that Eleanor had never noticed before. Michael thinks it's temporary, that she'll adapt and become more discreet. Eleanor felt her stomach tighten. Discreet? Was she being indiscreet somehow? She tried to remember some inappropriate behavior, but couldn't identify anything specific. Maybe she was misinterpreting the conversation. That night, during dinner, Eleanor observed the couple more carefully. Michael seemed the same as always, attentive and caring. Jessica also maintained her usual politeness, but Eleanor began to notice small details, the way her daughter-in-law averted her gaze when she spoke, how she served smaller portions on her plate, how she sighed almost imperceptibly when she made a comment. Jessica, dear, that cake you made yesterday was delicious. Could you teach me the recipe? Of course, Miss Eleanor, when I have some free time. Jessica didn't raise her eyes from her plate. Eleanor tried to push away negative thoughts. It was probably elderly paranoia, as George used to joke when she worried too much about small details. After all, Michael and Jessica had opened their home to her, something not all children would do. A few nights later, Eleanor woke up thirsty and went down to the kitchen. The house was plunged in silence, only illuminated by the street lamp light that came through the windows. While drinking water, she heard low voices coming from the couple's bedroom. It wasn't her intention to listen, but the words reached her clearly. Michael, we need to talk about your mother. What about her, Jess? She's becoming very present. Yesterday she wanted to help me organize our room. Today she suggested changing the living room decoration. It's like she wants to take control of the house. Eleanor felt her hands tremble. She had only offered help as any family member would do. There was no ill intention in her suggestions. My mother just wants to feel useful, Jess. She spent her entire life taking care of a house. I understand, but she needs to understand that this is our house. Don't you think she should, I don't know, adapt better to our rhythm? Eleanor went back upstairs silently, her heart beating hard in her chest. Maybe she really was being inconvenient without realizing it. The next day, she decided to be more careful, more observant of the space she occupied in the dynamics of that house. During breakfast, Eleanor kept quieter, waiting to be included in conversations instead of initiating them. She noticed that the silence lingered, and that Michael and Jessica exchanged glances that she couldn't completely decipher. The following weeks brought a subtle change in the house's atmosphere. Eleanor began to notice small gestures that previously went unnoticed. Jessica, who used to ask about her lunch preferences, now simply prepared the food and served what was ready. Michael, although still affectionate, seemed more distracted, always in a hurry to end conversations. Good morning, family. Eleanor entered the kitchen on a Thursday morning, finding the couple having breakfast quickly. Good morning, Mum. Michael kissed her cheek without raising his eyes from his phone. We have an important meeting early today. I left coffee. Ready in the thermos, Miss Eleanor, Jessica said, already picking up her purse. Oh, and the cleaning lady is coming today. It would be good if you stayed in your room while she cleans. Eleanor nodded, but a pang of discomfort hit her. It was strange how the suggestion sounded more like an order than a gentle request. After George left this world, she had always been the one who decided about the house, about her routine, about her life. Now she felt as if she was constantly asking permission to exist in her own space. During the morning, while the cleaning lady worked, Eleanor remained in her room organizing some clothes. Through the window she observed the street movement, neighbors leaving for work, children going to school. A strange sensation of watching life pass by from the outside began to form in her chest. Miss Eleanor, the cleaning lady, a friendly woman named Mary, appeared at the door. Can I clean here now? Of course, Mary, I'll go down to the living room. The lady of the house said you would stay here in the room. Until I finished. Mary seemed confused. She was very specific about that. Eleanor felt her face heat up. Had Jessica given instructions for her to remain confined to the room, like a child being punished? She tried to maintain her composure and smiled at Mary. There must have been a misunderstanding. I'll have tea in the kitchen. But when she went downstairs, Eleanor found the kitchen being cleaned and found herself with no place to be in her own house. She grabbed a magazine and settled on the back porch, where she remained until late morning, observing the garden plants and trying to understand what was happening with her new life. At lunch, Eleanor decided to approach the subject delicately. Jessica, dear, there was a small misunderstanding this morning. Mary said you asked me to stay in my room during the cleaning. Oh, that. Jessica didn't raise her eyes from her plate. It's just that you always want to help the cleaning lady, and that disrupts her work. I thought it would be better for you to rest. But I like to help. It makes me feel useful. Ms. Eleanor, Jessica finally looked at her. Mary has her own work system. When someone is helping, they're actually disrupting. Don't take it personally. Eleanor nodded, but the words reverberated in her mind for the rest of the day. When someone is helping, they're actually disrupting. The phrase seemed loaded with a deeper meaning, as if Jessica was talking about more than just housework. That afternoon, Eleanor decided to visit her former neighbor, Carol, who lived a few blocks away. The walk did her confused thoughts good, and finding a familiar face brought relief to her heart. Eleanor, how wonderful to see you. Carol received her with a warm hug. How is life at Michael's house? Good, Carol. Different, but good. Eleanor tried to sound convincing. It's an adjustment, right, after living alone for so long? I can imagine, but it's good that you have a family that welcomes you. Nowadays, many elderly people are abandoned by their own children. During tea with homemade cookies, Eleanor felt like herself again. Carol made her laugh with gossip from the old building, asked her opinion on various matters, treated her like the interesting and capable person she had always been. There, Eleanor didn't feel like a burden or a nuisance. You're thinner, Eleanor. Are you eating well? Oh, yes. Jessica cooks very well. Eleanor partially lied. Jessica did cook well, but the portions she served her were getting smaller and smaller, and she rarely asked if Eleanor was satisfied. And how are you getting along? It's not easy for a daughter-in-law to have her mother-in-law living in the same house. Eleanor forced a smile. Jessica is a good girl, polite, respectful. But as she uttered these words, Eleanor realized that polite and respectful were cold adjectives. They didn't describe affection, fondness, or even genuine tolerance. They were characteristics one has with strangers, not with family. On tea, the way back, Eleanor reflected on the conversation. Perhaps Carol was right about the difficulty of a daughter-in-law having her mother-in-law at home. Maybe she needed to be more understanding of Jessica's situation. After all, the couple had their routine, their habits, their intimacy. Her presence really represented a significant change for them. Arriving home, Eleanor found Michael watching television alone in the living room. Where's Jessica? She went to the salon to get her nails done with her friends. Michael patted the sofa beside him. Come here, Mom, let's talk a bit. Eleanor sat down, feeling grateful for her son's attention. It had been a while since they had a moment. Alone. How are you feeling here at home, Mom, really? The question caught her off guard. Eleanor hesitated, wanting to be honest but not wanting to seem ungrateful. It's a big change, son. Sometimes I feel a little lost about what my place is here. Michael sighed. Mom, your place is by our side, but I understand it's not easy. For any of us. Is Jessica bothered by my presence? She's not bothered, Mom. It's just that you two are very different. You have different rhythms, different ways of doing things. Jessica is more systematic. She likes things organized her way. And am I disorganizing? It's not that. It's that you have your habits, your ways, and she has hers. Sometimes that creates some small friction. Eleanor felt a lump in her throat. Michael, if I'm causing problems in your marriage, Mom, don't talk like that. You're my family. Jessica understands that. She just needs time to adjust. And how long would that be? Michael was silent for a few seconds, and Eleanor realized he didn't have an answer. That silence said more than any words could express. Son, I can look for another place to live. There are very good residences. For people my age, don't even think about it. Michael turned to her, taking her hands. You're my mother. I'm not going to let you go to a place like that, ever. Eleanor felt momentary relief, but also noticed something in Michael's voice. There was firmness, but also an almost imperceptible hesitation, as if he were trying to convince himself as much as her. That night, Eleanor took a long time to fall asleep. She lay thinking about the past few months, trying to identify exactly when things began to change. She remembered small moments. Jessica changing the subject when she started to tell a story. Michael distractedly agreeing with her opinions without really listening to her, the two of them talking in low tones that ceased when she entered the room. Maybe she was being paranoid. Maybe the adaptation was really difficult for everyone, and with time, things would naturally adjust. Or maybe her presence really was causing more trouble than benefits for that family. Eleanor looked at the ceiling in the dark, listening to the night noises of the house. For the first time since moving, she wondered if she had made the right decision. The loneliness of her old apartment was beginning to seem less frightening than the feeling of being alone in the midst of people who supposedly loved her. The following months brought a gradual but constant deterioration of the family environment. Eleanor began to notice that her opinions were systematically ignored or dismissed with condescending smiles. During meals, Jessica and Michael discussed future plans as if she weren't present, talking about trips, home renovations, investments, always using the pronoun we in a way that clearly excluded her. We were thinking about remodeling the kitchen, Jessica commented during dinner, addressing exclusively Michael. Those cabinets are very old, and I'd like to modernize everything. Good. Idea, we can get some quotes, Michael agreed. Eleanor, who had spent decades decorating and organizing homes, who had experience in renovations and good taste recognized by everyone who knew her, remained silent. Her opinion hadn't been requested, as if she were just a temporary observer of that home. I have some ideas for the kitchen, Eleanor ventured to comment. I've done 2 renovations in my life and learned some interesting tricks. That's nice. Miss Eleanor, Jessica replied with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. But we already have a decorator in mind, someone who understands our style. Our style. Not our, including Eleanor, but our as a couple, as 2 people who shared a life, of which she wasn't truly a part. The subtle jokes began a few weeks later. During a Sunday lunch, when Eleanor spilled some juice on the table, Jessica commented with a fake laugh, I think we need to invest in cups with lids, right, Michael? Those ones for children. Michael laughed too, and Eleanor felt a deep humiliation burn in her chest. She wasn't a child. She was an adult woman who had raised children, managed a house, worked, lived a full life for 70 years. But at that moment she felt diminished, reduced to an incapable and inconvenient person. Jessica, that wasn't necessary, Eleanor said softly. Oh, Miss Eleanor, it was just a joke. You're so sensitive. Very sensitive. The words echoed in Eleanor's mind for days. When someone was cruel to you and then said you were too sensitive, it not only diminished your pain but also placed the blame on you for feeling it. The portions of food continued to diminish. Jessica always had an excuse. I thought you were on a diet, or I read that older people need to eat less to maintain health, or simply, I thought you wouldn't like this dish. Eleanor began to feel constantly hungry, not just hunger for food, but a deep hunger for dignity, for respect, for being treated as a valuable human being. She started hiding some cookies in her room, eating them in secret during the early morning hours, feeling pathetic for having to sneak around in her own home to feed herself adequately. It was on a Tuesday night that Eleanor heard the conversation. That would change everything. She had gone downstairs for water and, passing by the living room, heard low voices coming from the porch. Michael and Jessica were talking, thinking she was already asleep. Michael, I can't take this situation anymore. Your mother is becoming impossible. Jess, she's just an elderly lady trying to adapt. She wants to control everything. Yesterday she suggested we change the dinner time. The day before she complained about the air conditioning. Temperature today she wanted to choose the TV program. It's like having a fussy child in the house. Eleanor felt her blood freeze in her veins. Fussy child. She had merely expressed normal preferences, opinions that anyone would have the right to have in their own home. Where maybe we should talk to her about establishing some boundaries, Michael suggested, and Eleanor realized that his resistance was weakening. Boundaries? Michael, the boundary is her not being here anymore. Look, I know she's your mother, but think about us. Think about our marriage, our intimacy, our life. We can't have a private conversation anymore. We can't decide anything without her wanting to give her opinion. It's suffocating. And what do you suggest we do? Eleanor held her breath, her heart beating so hard she feared they might hear it. There are very good places for people her age. Residences with all the necessary assistance, activities, people in the same age group. She would be happier there. Jess, those are nursing homes. I can't send my mother to a nursing home. They're not nursing homes, Michael. They're luxury residences. And honestly, she has the financial means to pay. That house of hers was sold for good money. Eleanor felt nauseous hearing Jessica talking about her finances so naturally, as if her resources were their business, as if she were just a problem to be solved with money. I don't know, Jess. It seems cruel. What's cruel is what's happening to us. What's cruel is me not being able to feel at home in my own home anymore. What's cruel is having to implicitly ask permission to do anything. Michael, I love you, but if this continues, our marriage will seriously suffer. There was a long silence, and Eleanor imagined Michael weighing his wife's words. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded tired. I'll think about how to approach the subject with her, but it has to be done delicately. Of course, my love, with all delicacy. We'll show her that it's for everyone's good, including her own. Eleanor went back upstairs silently, her legs trembling. She reached her room and sat on the bed, trying to process what she had just heard. They not only wanted to get rid of her, but they were planning how to convince her that the idea was good for her too. Throughout her life, Eleanor had faced difficulties. She lost her parents young, raised Michael practically alone, while George worked day and night, went through difficult financial times, took care of her husband during his long illness. She had always found strength to overcome obstacles, had always believed that family was the safe harbor where she could always find love and shelter. But now, for the first time in her 70 years, Eleanor felt completely lost. The son she had loved unconditionally, for whom she had sacrificed so much to raise and educate, was discussing how to get rid of her, as if she were a problem to be solved. And worse, he was allowing his wife to speak of her with such contempt and coldness. Eleanor spent the entire night awake, looking at the ceiling, trying to understand how she had reached that point. Where had she gone wrong? How had she not realized before that her presence was so unwanted? And mainly, what would she do now that she knew the truth? In the morning, Eleanor went down for breakfast as always, but something fundamental had changed inside her. She observed Michael and Jessica with new eyes, saw each gesture, each word, each look, through the lens of the conversation she had overheard the night before. "Good morning, Miss Eleanor. Did you sleep well?" Jessica asked with exaggerated cheerfulness. "Well, thank you," Eleanor replied, her voice sounding different even to herself. "Mom, you're pale. Are you feeling all right?" Michael showed concern. Eleanor stared at him for a long moment. This man whom she had carried in her arms, whom she had consoled during childhood nightmares, whom she had applauded at every achievement, whom she had loved without reservations, was concerned about her paleness but was planning to send her to an institution. "I'm fine, son. Just thoughtful." During the day, Eleanor made a decision that would change the course of her story forever. She would no longer be the passive victim of a situation that diminished and humiliated her. If Michael and Jessica wanted her out of their lives, she would leave. But in her own way, at her own time, and for her own reasons. That afternoon, while the couple was at work, Eleanor began to plan her escape. Eleanor spent 3 days meticulously planning her departure. It wouldn't be a desperate escape, but A dignified and strategic exit. During the afternoons, while Michael and Jessica worked, she organized her documents, separated her savings, and researched hotels on the internet. She chose the Grand Plaza Hotel, a luxurious establishment in the city center, where she could stay while deciding her next steps. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, while the house slept in silence, Eleanor got up and put on her best outfit. She placed in her purse her most important documents, her bank card, some jewelry that George had given her, and a small photo of the two of them on their wedding day. She left a simple letter on the kitchen table. "Michael and Jessica, I decided it's better for everyone that I seek my own path. Don't worry about me. Eleanor." At 5 in the morning, Eleanor closed the door of the house where she had believed she would be happy and called a taxi. As she moved away from that neighborhood, she felt a mixture of sadness and relief that she couldn't completely explain. She was leaving behind the illusion of a loving family, but she was also regaining her freedom. The Grand Plaza Hotel received her with an elegance that she had almost forgotten existed. The receptionist treated her with genuine courtesy, calling her ma'am with respect, not with condescension. The room was spacious, luxurious, with a view of the city she had known for decades. For the first time in months, Eleanor felt at home. During the first days at the hotel, Eleanor rediscovered simple pleasures she had lost. She had breakfast in the restaurant, where the waiters asked her preferences and remembered them in the following days. She read the newspaper in the lobby, chatted with other guests, strolled through the city without having to account to anyone about where she was going or when she would return. Michael called several times, leaving desperate messages. "Mom, where are you? We're extremely worried. Please come back home. We can talk about anything that's bothering you." Eleanor listened to the messages but didn't return them. Not yet. She needed time to think, to reorganize internally, to decide how she wanted her life to continue from then on. It was during one of these walks that Eleanor passed in front of the office of Dr. Robert Mitchell, a lawyer she had met. Years earlier, through George, a sign in the window caught her attention. Family and Succession Law. Impulsively, she decided to enter. "Ms. Eleanor, what a wonderful surprise." Dr. Robert welcomed her enthusiastically. "How are you? And George? How is he?" "George left us 2 years ago, Doctor, and I'm going through some changes in life." During the conversation, Eleanor told her situation in a summarized way. Dr. Robert listened attentively and at the end made a suggestion that surprised her. "Eleanor, you said you sold your house and the money is earning interest in a savings account?" "Yes, Doctor, it's a considerable amount." "Have you ever thought about investing in real estate? The market is hot, and a person with your life experience could be very successful in that area." The idea had never crossed Eleanor's mind, but something in her was excited by the possibility. "Do you think I would have the capacity for that?" "Eleanor, you managed a house for decades, raised a son, took care of a sick husband, went through all the difficulties that life can offer, and you're still here, strong and lucid. Of course you have the capacity." In the following days, Eleanor immersed herself in this new possibility with an energy she hadn't felt in years. Dr. Robert introduced her to real estate agents. She visited properties, studied the market, made calculations. She discovered that she had not only sufficient resources to invest, but also an impressive intuition for identifying good deals. In 2 weeks, Eleanor had bought her first property, a small but well-located apartment that could be rented to young professionals. The process of buying, negotiating, and documentation made her feel competent and respected in a way she hadn't experienced in a long time. "Congratulations, Ms. Eleanor," said the agent on the day of signing. "You made an excellent deal. You have an eye for this." Eleanor smiled, feeling a confidence grow inside her. Perhaps she had spent so much time being just George's wife and then Michael's mother that she had forgotten to be Eleanor, the capable and intelligent woman she had always been. In 3 months, Eleanor had acquired 5 different properties. Apartments for rent, a small commercial house, even a room in a business building. Her investments were generating a monthly income that surprised her. More than that, she was rediscovering skills she didn't know she possessed: negotiation, market. Analysis, relationship with tenants. It was then that she decided to take an even bolder step. Eleanor organized a real estate exhibition in the event hall of the very hotel where she was staying. She invited real estate agents, investors, people interested in buying or renting. She prepared an elegant event with cocktails, professional presentation of her properties, and even a small speech about investment opportunities. On the night of the exhibition, Eleanor was radiant. She wore a navy blue suit that she had bought especially for the occasion. Her hair was perfectly arranged, and she moved through the hall with the confidence of an experienced businesswoman. Several people approached her interested in her properties, praised her business acumen, asked for advice on investments. It was in the middle of the exhibition that Eleanor saw Michael and Jessica enter the hall. They had discovered where she was and came, obviously, to try to convince her to return. The expression of shock on their faces when they saw Eleanor as the center of attention, commanding a business event, making deals, being respected and admired, was something she would never forget. "Mom?" Michael approached, visibly confused. What is all this?" "This, my son, is my new life," Eleanor responded with serenity. "These are my properties, my investments, my business." Jessica looked around with disbelief. "Ms. Eleanor, you bought all this?" "I bought, manage, and profit from all this, Jessica. I discovered that I have many more capabilities than I imagined." A real estate agent approached the group. "Ms. Eleanor, that couple interested in the Riverside apartment wants to close the deal today. They loved your proposal." Eleanor turned to the agent naturally. "Great, Paul. Let's finalize then. Excuse me," she said to Michael and Jessica, moving away to conclude the negotiation. Throughout the night, Michael and Jessica remained at the event, observing Eleanor with a mixture of admiration and disbelief. The woman they had seen as a burden, as someone incapable and inconvenient, was there commanding business, being consulted about investments, treated with respect and deference by everyone around her. When the event ended, Eleanor finally sat down with them at a reserved table. "Mom, I don't understand. How did you do all this? Where did you get the money to buy properties?" Eleanor smiled sadly. "Michael, I always had this money. The sale of the house yielded very well. My investments with your father were solid. My retirement... Here's good. You saw me as a poor, dependent old lady because I myself forgot who I really was. But Mom, why didn't you say anything? Why did you run away from home that way?" Eleanor took a deep breath before answering. "Because I heard your conversation on the porch that night. I heard Jessica talking about sending me to an institution. I heard you agreeing. I heard how you talked about me as if I were a problem to be solved." Michael turned pale. Jessica looked away, clearly uncomfortable. "Mom, You don't need to explain, son. I got the message. You wanted me out of your lives and I left, but not the way you expected, as a defeated old lady going to a nursing home. I left as Eleanor, the woman I've always been, but had forgotten to." "Peusa, Ms. Eleanor," Jessica finally spoke, her voice small. I'm sorry. I didn't know... Didn't know what, Jessica? That I was a person with feelings? That I had dignity? That I deserved respect in my own family?" Eleanor stood up, picked up her elegant purse and looked at the two. "Now you know where I am, you know I'm well, better than I've been in years. You don't need to worry about me or feel guilty anymore. I found my place in the world, and it's no longer in your house. Mom, please, it can't be like this. You're my family." Eleanor stopped and turned to Michael. "Family, my son, isn't just blood. It's love, respect, consideration, mutual care. When you stop treating me like family, I cease to be." 2. Weeks later, Eleanor inaugurated her own real estate agency. The office was small but elegant, located in a prestigious area of the city. The sign on the door said, "Eleanor Wilson, Real Estate Investments." She had decided to use her maiden name again, a symbolic way of reclaiming her identity. Michael visited her at the office a few days after the inauguration. He found Eleanor attending to clients, explaining contracts, closing deals with the ease of someone who had always done that. "Mom, can I talk to you?" Eleanor finished attending to the client and addressed Michael. "Of course, son. Sit down." "I came to apologize, really. and to beg you to come back home. Michael, I have a home. I bought a beautiful apartment on the south side. I have my business, my routine, my life. I'm happy. But we're your family, Mom. Eleanor looked at her son with affection, but also with firmness. You had the chance to be my family, Michael. You chose to see me as a problem. Now I choose to see you as part of my past. Michael cried, asked for forgiveness repeatedly, promised that everything would be different. But Eleanor had learned something fundamental. Respect once lost is rarely completely regained, and dignity once reconquered should not be put at risk again. 6 months later, Eleanor was a respected businesswoman in the real estate market. Her story inspired other women her age to seek independence and personal fulfillment. She created a support group for elderly people who were going through situations similar to hers, offering not only emotional support, but also practical guidance on investments and financial independence. Eleanor discovered that at 70 years old, she still had much to live, much to achieve, much to offer the world. She learned that it's never too late to start over, that true family is the one that loves and respects us unconditionally, and that sometimes we need to lose everything to discover how capable we are. On a Sunday afternoon, sitting on the balcony of her apartment, watching the movement of the city and planning her next investment, Eleanor smiled to herself. She had found something she didn't know she was looking for: herself. The end, dear listeners. We hope that Eleanor's story has touched your hearts and inspired you to never underestimate the power of starting over. To continue following emotional stories like this, which explore the strength of the human spirit and the capacity for transformation, subscribe to our channel by clicking the button below. Leave your like if Eleanor's journey moved you, and tell us in the comments, have you ever been through situations where you needed to rediscover your own strength? Every day we bring unique narratives that celebrate courage, dignity, and the power of never giving up on yourself. Don't miss our